Certified Examiner Training video. This one we're going to cover right of way. Now when you look on your score sheet, it's on the right side down in the lower section here. There are only two errors and they both say ROW for right of way. So what's the difference? First up, the danger potential right of way. In this case, the right of way is not clearly yielded. That's the danger potential. Now no, don't score right of way. The applicant cut someone off while changing lanes without a reaction from other drivers such as swerving and braking, etc. So if the applicant had to slow down, if the other person had to slow down because of the applicant's actions, right, they need a reaction. So if they slow down, yes, you're going to score it. If they didn't slow down, then you're not going to score that. Now if you have to intervene to stop an imminent collision, score this as a dangerous action. If the driver fails to react safely to others, you could also give a score of attention here. So consider that. And again, use your best judgment. So, it's only one error. You're like, well, okay, well, right away, how am I supposed to know what all this is? We're going to cover right away and what it means to yield. So remember, while the applicant's driving around, right, they must not interfere with the path of another vehicle, cyclist, or pedestrian if they are required to yield. Okay, so if they do interfere, which means they cause the vehicle, cyclist, or pedestrian to slow down to avoid them, but not take extreme measures, you're going to have to score this 4-point right-of-way violation. Remember, the applicant's not supposed to make them use their brakes or swerve to avoid them. So let's cover some of the right-of-way situation you may see here. So remember, applicants always have to yield when they have a yield sign, right? If you come up here, the other cars don't have to do anything, but you've got to yield. So if they don't yield, you'll consider scoring that, failing to yield the right-of-way. Another one here, number 2, yield after stopping at a stop sign. So after stopping, you'll have to yield based on what other signs people have. Other people may have a stop sign, they may not have a stop sign. You have to yield after making a complete stop at a stop sign. All right, third one here, yield to a car going straight if you're turning. Right, so someone making a left turn, if they don't yield to that car, that blue car, you're going to score this right-of-way violation. We're showing the correct way to do things, not the wrong way here. The fourth one, left turning traffic has to yield to right turning traffic. So people turning left, as you know, have to wait, even if they didn't get there first, right? But if that person turning left goes ahead and turns in and makes that yellow car slow down unnecessarily, you're going to score a right-of-way violation here. Number 5, you're required to yield to a car on the right if it's a tie. So in this case, the blue car is supposed to yield to the yellow one. If they don't, we're going to score that as a 4-point penalty. Next rule, first in, first out. Both cars, all things being equal here. Now remember, if one of those cars is turning, then those earlier rules will apply. Right turning traffic yields to cars going straight ahead. Left turning traffic yields to both straight ahead traffic and right turning traffic. Now this also applies at all-way stop signs, first in, first out. And if it's a tie, you're yielding to the right. All right. Number 7, you've got to yield to traffic that's clearing an intersection. So they've got their light, and they may be doing it wrong. They might enter an intersection late. You've got that green light. You still need to wait for them to clear. If they don't, you're going to score a right-of-way violation. Yield to traffic clearing an intersection. Number 8, you'll have to yield to traffic that's already in a roundabout. Now remember, the roundabout, you can score a failure to comply if they don't scan the roundabout, or of course hit the lines or that center portion. But if they don't yield to somebody in a roundabout, you're going to score it under right of way. Failing to yield the right of way, 4-point danger potential. Number 9, at a T intersection, you're required to yield to traffic that's on the through road. So there's no signage here, but this is the rule. You're required to yield to people on the through road. Number 10, you're required to yield when entering from alleys, driveways, or the side of the road. You'll see that's the beginning of the test. Your applicant is required to yield to people who are on the sidewalk, who are on the roads. Number 11. Now I've included this one because there's a couple of possibilities here. You do need to yield to emergency vehicles with lights or sirens activated. You're also required to move over to the right and stop. Now again, if they don't do this, if your applicant does not do this, you're also going to look down on general driving performance, the next section, and score attention. We'll get to that in the next one. But there may be a possibility that right-of-way is more applicable than attention. Number 12, you're required to yield to city buses, municipal buses, when they re-enter traffic. So if they're re-entering, they even have a little yield sticker on the back of them just to remind you. It's not very comprehensive, but if the bus is signaling to the left and wanting to get back on the road, the applicant does have to yield to that bus. If they don't, he'll score a right-of-way violation. I've seen this before. Number 13, anytime you're changing lanes or if your lane is ending, you'll have to yield to cars in the lane you want to get into. The applicant doesn't yield to people when changing lanes. It's going to be a penalty for that. Now I've included this one. We don't do freeway on the skills exam, of course, but you may have a situation where you have a merging lane such as this on your route, and you've got to yield to people who are on that, because it's essentially the same as a lane change. I've left this on here just for the illustration, but of course we're not doing freeway on the skills exams. Number 15, you're required to yield when backing. Now we covered this right under the backing maneuver already, and anytime you're driving in reverse, you have to yield to everyone. There are more specific errors for this under the backing section, so if you haven't watched that yet, definitely go back and watch the backing video, first in this series. Number 16, we're required to yield to trains. Now, hopefully, you don't experience anything as scary as not yielding to trains on your skills exam. I hope you never do. But if somebody's not yielding to a train, but there wasn't quite enough danger where you had to stop them, you're going to score it here under right-of-way, failing to yield the right-of-way. Number 17, this is a tricky one. Remember, you're required to yield to pedestrians in a marked or an unmarked crosswalk, right? So on the left and right of this intersection, you're going to see marked crosswalks. They may look like this. And crossing in front of left or from right to left there, that's an unmarked crosswalk. And so sometimes a lot of people don't know that you're required to yield to pedestrians in an unmarked crosswalk. In fact, actually, in recent years, you're required to make a complete stop for pedestrians in a marked or unmarked crosswalk and yield to them. As I said, a complete stop is required now. Now, number 18, you're required to yield to blind people even if they aren't in a crosswalk. So whatever they're doing, if they're not in a crosswalk, you're required to yield to blind people. Number 19, yield to everyone when turning right on a red light. Yield to everyone, including cross traffic coming from your left, people making U-turns like the red car there, and of course left turning traffic on the other side. A lot of people forget they have to yield to U-turns here, and probably for me this is the most common reason I score right away the 4-point variety. It's for people failing to yield to those making U-turns on a right on red situation. Number 20, you're required to yield when driving around an obstruction in your lane. So if you've got the obstruction, the other car gets to pass and your applicant has to wait. And then again, go back to passing, because if they don't pass correctly, you're going to score this under passing if they don't signal or do the blind spot check before and after completing the pass. 21, we're required to yield to road construction vehicles and workers who are actually engaged in road construction. Right, so we have to yield to them. And of course, obey flaggers' commands. 22, remember that pedestrians must yield when they're not crossing at a crosswalk. So if a pedestrian is coming up, they're not at a crosswalk, your applicant does not need to stop for them. Now, you have to exercise due care not to collide with them, but you're not required to yield to pedestrians if they are not in an marked or unmarked crosswalk. And here, 23 should be the last one. Right turning traffic must yield to cyclists going straight. In this case, if you know you have a cyclist there, they may need to wait. The cyclist going straight, you have to yield to the cyclist in this scenario. Hopefully you, as an examiner, are keeping an eye on them as well, because we're all supposed to keep an eye on the world around us and try to make predictions before the applicant gets into trouble. The right-of-way congestion potential error, 2 points. Very specific, when the right-of-way is not taken when it's clearly yielded by others. So if your applicant's in the yellow car here, red car shows up, they wait, don't take the right of way when it's clearly theirs, you're going to score this here, right of way not taken when clearly yielded by others. So the 4-point is when you fail to yield the right of way, and the 2-point version is you fail to take the right of way when it's clearly being offered to you. All right, so how is this different from the hesitation error under general driving performance? We're going to cover that in the next video. Under general driving performance, you'll see a little HES down there, the very last penalty in the bottom right. And that one is hesitate to proceed based on faraway traffic. So this one is going to be a little different because it's tied more to a right-of-way issue rather than they think they're too close and they cannot accurately judge how far away the car is. So it's slightly different there. We're going to cover that in the next section, general driving performance. See you then.